So today is the last day of the International Summit on the Protection of Whistleblowers, hosted by the South African Human Rights Commission. It aims to explore reforms needed in legal and institutional frameworks underlying whistleblower protection. For more on this, we're joined by Tseliso Thipanyane, the CEO of the Human Rights Commission. Tseliso, thank you very much for your time this morning. Now, you're hosting a very important gathering. And this is at a time when the country is seized with the effects of state capture, which were in part interrupted through the help of whistleblowers. Just talk to me about what the summit seeks to achieve insofar as whistleblowers are concerned.
Thank you, and good day to you and your viewers. Whistleblowers play a very important role in our country in strengthening our democracy, but also helping us to fight corruption as well as abuse of state power and resources. Unfortunately, despite the fact that there's an act which protects whistleblowers, over a long time, whistleblowers continue to be victimized. Some of them have even been killed, they've lost their livelihoods. And therefore, we're having the summit to try and see, how can we strengthen the legal framework to ensure better protection for whistleblowers and ensure that, their victimization, which actually constitutes a human rights violation, is stopped and redressed as quickly as possible. And therefore, we have invited colleagues from the Ghana Human Rights Commission, who also have a law which also deals with whistleblowers, to share experiences with them to see how best we can go about this.
Now, when we speak of strengthening legislation, when we speak of it here, we're speaking of, in particular, the Protected Disclosures Act. It comes to mind, which unfortunately falls short of addressing the several issues that are triggered when one actually discloses. I mean, as a point of departure, many know that the one problem that whistleblowers raised was that the Act assumes that the employee and whistleblower have the same interests of protecting the company, which is sometimes not the case. Sometimes the perpetrator or those who misappropriate money in companies are in fact the employer or a manager, if you will. So how can you align it in this respect when we speak about the fact that, just as a point of departure, there is a wrong assumption where employee and employer are not always on the same page?
Well, those assumptions have to be looked into, as well as, the need to strengthen how we protect the whistleblowers from victimization, and the role of bodies like Human Rights Commission, Public Protector, Auditor General, in also, in terms of the Act. Both of us are centers where people can come to us, to blow the whistle. And therefore, how then we protect people like this? How do we ensure that organs of state do not abuse their powers in dealing with people who blow the whistle within their ranks? This has been one of the problems that, most whistleblowers, as you say, are victimized by the very same institutions which they work for, where they've exposed corruption or wrongdoing. And therefore, we do need to strengthen this, because we do need to encourage whistleblowers in our country to come forward. That's one of the most effective ways in which we could fight corruption, as we have seen in the Zondo Commission. Without whistleblowers, as far as I'm concerned, would not have had the success we've had in the Zondo Commission.
And the Act is very clear, Tseliso. It's very clear when it speaks about occupational detriment. I mean, it lists here that you need to protect these individuals against victimization. They mustn't lose their jobs. All of it is there. But what actually happens in reality when you are in the office space and you have exposed malpractice is something completely different. It can be subtle victimization where you're isolated, and sometimes you actually surrender and resign by yourself. And another thing about the Act is that it confines itself to, as I said, occupational detriment. But the reality is people are assassinated outside of the work relationship. So what or whom must protect them outside of the working relationship, where, yes, you have a job, but you're not necessarily sure that you won't be assassinated, as we've seen with the late Babita?
That's why we want a more comprehensive legal framework, an institutional framework which will protect whistleblowers, whether in the public or private, or whether employed or unemployed. And that's what we really are committing ourselves to do, to ensure that this happens. We are also fortunate that the Zondo Commission report itself is making similar recommendations, that there has to be a better framework to protect the whistleblowers. We need them. They are our defenders of our democracy.
And then on the part of, in the instance of those that have been killed? I know that there's also been a call now to perhaps align legislation now, in particular Article 32, subsection 2 of the UN Convention. Like, with that, was it raised in the summit or has it not yet been raised?
Well, it is being raised. That's why I say international summit. We're looking at everything. Remember, South Africa also has an obligation to give effect to UN conventions that it has ratified, as well as the African regional conventions. So we are looking at everything.
Tseliso, apologies there. I have to interject. I'm so sorry. I want us to come back to this all-important conversation